Well, hello again. It's your friend in the toy business, Eric Goggins. I'm going to be laying out the new Icon of the Seas Revision 2 from Liners World today in the latest version of Lychee Slicer Pro. That is 6.02, and you'll see some of the new tools that they've added. It's a neat couple of additions, including support tools and some structure tools that are very welcome and bring Lychee up to par with Voxel Dance and Chitu Box. We are going to rotate this big beastie up to 45 degrees. We're going to change printers because it's a little bit too big for the Mono X6K. We're going to the biggest printer I have, the M3 Max. It's still a pretty decent resolution, gets you 50 microns, but it's a much bigger build plate for a single module like this icon. So now we have the icon rotated up to 45 degrees. We're going to add a hollowing system. Well, actually, first let's move it up 5 millimeters. 2, 3, 4, 5. That allows the supports to form. So now we're going to go add a hollowing system. Hollowing 2D, yes. I'm going to turn it on. We're going to have a 1.8 millimeter sidewall and a 14% infill. Holes. We're going to do some drain holes. Why not? We'll start with the vent holes this time. So I'm going to take this down to 0.9 millimeters. The diameter of the vents, 0.9. It also needs to be long enough so that it can reach in from the outside at a variety of different spots. So I'm going to raise that up to about 7 millimeters. And then we'll go in and find all the pockets where it could potentially vacuum, starting at the very bottom. So I'm going to put in a couple little tiny ones where you can see just the void is starting to form at the very front where it turns hollow. And you want those to be ventilated first, otherwise you'll end up with either a failed print or a warped print, or even worse, it could just tear itself right off the plate with the vacuum created by the start of this void. A little bit higher. Both sides. You also need to add one down here. That one needs to be lower. It's a surprisingly complex model. This is going to be one of the longest videos that I do, because this model, I remember I had to raise the price on it by about 15% just because not only was the support job taking a long time, but also trimming the supports after post-processing was taking an inordinate amount of time. And that has to come from somewhere. Time is money. It's almost good. It really needs to be closer to where the void is starting. Let's try down here. Alright, that's passable. So I'll go ahead and put one on the other side in the same place for redundancy. Now we've got that ventilated, and we're going to, yes, that looks good. And the one down at the bottom also looks good. So we can continue moving upward. There's a little baby vacuum right there. I'll go ahead and at least do the middle of it. There. And we'll continue moving up. And what I'm doing is I'm just looking for pockets like this one here right at the base of the dome where a void is forming, but there is no way for air to get into it. And so I'm going to actually drop this into the core of the ship. Let's see how we've done. You got to double check to make sure that your vents make it all the way inside, and that one does. You also want to make sure that your vents aren't making some sort of thin surface for the rest of your model. And this one, it has a nice thick wall all the way up, so it's a good vent. I'm actually going to put one on either side for redundancy. You guessed it. It's my favorite word. I mean, if you use it in the UK sense, it's a bad thing, people getting fired, but in the engineering sense, redundancy is one of my absolute favorite terms. Continuing to move up, looking for more suction cupping. And that ledge right there is going to be a lot of fun to support because it's very shallow, but we'll come back to that. Just little tiny suction cups, nothing that you would worry about. Oh yeah, this is fun. Smack in the middle of this, my designer has been very true to the model and made this very realistic, but it's also very hard to eliminate these suction cups because there's layer after layer after layer of new decking forming with these blind alleys, and it forms suction cups on every layer for like 5 decks. Thanks, Royal Caribbean slash Meyer Werft or whoever else designed this thing. Okay, there's a couple little baby ones there. I'll go ahead and drop in some more vents. Did I get everything? And it doesn't hurt to have. That doesn't look like. Okay, yeah. That is barely getting down to the middle of the ship. I need to move those forward. Or I just need to add a couple more. Well, no, it's okay. That section right there isn't a suction cup, but the section above it is, and that's what we're worried about. So we'll keep moving, and then we come to the first courtyard, which has its own series of hazards in the form of 2 suction cups here. 1, 2, oops. Gotta be careful with Lychee. It wants to put them at the wrong angle. Make sure they're facing. I try to make them facing down. Sometimes I'll make them first face forwards, but for the most part, I like them to be facing down. You can just see the geometry of this thing is insane, and we're gonna have to go back through for some of these areas. You can see to the center of the screen, or sort of to the left of the model, to the front of the model, where there's like these thin hollow areas that aren't going to drain very well, and you want to add extra drain holes there so you get it good and washed. So otherwise you could end up with resin residue inside the model that will make it fail sometimes years down the road. So something to be wary of. I'm going to keep moving back, looking for suction cupping. And this one there. No, that goes all the way forward. And even in 1/1000 scale, which is the default from Liner's World, even in that scale, this is an enormous model. It's like 15 inches long. It just boggles the mind how big this thing is in real life. And I've already printed some that are 1/700. I've printed some that are 1/600 even in 2 modules on these big machines. And it's a lot of work, but also a lot of reward. There's some vacuum potential there, some suction cupping potential. Definitely want to ventilate those. Let's see. Oh, there's a couple more. Super complicated geometry right here. Again, thanks to Royal Caribbean for making that happen. And thanks to Liner's World for so accurately portraying it. Um, I'm not being facetious. It's really a beautiful piece of artwork in terms of everything that went into it, even though it might be a little bit, uh, shall we say, heinous at first glance. It grows on you. It's a neat design. I hope someday to sail aboard the Icon. All right, that is most of the suction cupping. There's a little bit at the back I seem to remember. I've only supported this thing, 5 different times for 5 different scales. There's one. Okay, we're almost done with suction cupping, and now we need to do draining. So we're going to add a whole bunch of drain holes on the bottom. We're going to add drain holes in some of the structure up top to make sure it gets cleaned and that it drains properly. We'll start down at the bottom again. So why do you want drain holes? You want drain holes because the entire inside of this is big and empty, and when you finish printing, it has all the residue that you can't see on the inside still, so it has to be flooded, rinsed, washed, and cleaned out. I'm getting a call, hold on. So we're going to go in and add some more drains. We have those initial vents or drains. They end up being a little bit of both when you're actually physically washing the thing. But then we need to add more. There we go. In the main body where it starts to get really big, but after these bow thruster objects, there's a little suction cup there. There's a little tiny one. I'm gonna put in some drains there. And here's a foible with Lychee. Maybe Lychee is watching these and they can see. Sometimes you can zoom in faster on one side of a model than you can on the other, and it's really weird. It's like maybe it's the side that's they consider forward. See how much easier it is to zoom in? I'm using a lot fewer scrolls on my scroll wheel to get to that model. I don't know, maybe I'm hallucinating. It does awfully feel a lot like that's what it's doing though. Okay, I've negated that little tiny suction cup. We'll come in here as it gets to the main body and we'll put in big drains. What do I mean by big? Well, with a 1/1000, I tend to do 1.7 millimeter drains. Those are actually pretty big. And you can actually drop the penetration down to about 5 millimeters and up that to 1.8 maybe. Come on, 1.9. Sure, big. So the bigger they are, I mean, obviously it's harder to fill them in when you're painting a model, but it makes it so you can clean out the model faster, and it allows the ultrasonic cavitation to more easily make it into the interior and clean out the interior. So I use um, an ultrasonic cleaner to clean all of my models. It's a really big beastie. It's about 3.5 gallons maybe. And you can find that in my Lab Secret series. I show you exactly where to get that piece of equipment on Amazon. Right now the Lab Secret series is up to part 27, I think. For a while I was doing one every day, but I've cut that back to about once a week. I'm not sure if I'm running out of secrets or patience or maybe both. But I still do one once in a while. It's a big model. I put a lot of drains on there, so as you're cleaning it, you can drain it really fast. I put about maybe 20 drains on the front. Let's go to the back. I'll add just as many back there. At the back, you need to be careful not to interfere with these propellers. Ah, trains coming by, maybe you can hear it. So in the back, you need to be careful not to interfere with these propellers. So you want to add the drains away from them, just because you're going over this with a paper towel. The propellers are very fragile, and I almost always end up replacing them anyway. But on the off chance that I don't blunder into them, it's nice to not have to do that. It's nice to have them intact for the customer, and then they're happier not having to replace them when they receive the model. All right, maybe a couple more. Okay, I'm also going to go back at the very, very back where this ends. Oh, hmm. So normally I would add a couple right where it ends, but the geometry is such that you can't hide that very easily, so it's just going to have to wash a little extra long for these. Maybe I'll add a couple on the inside here where you can't see them. I do that sometimes. So I'll come up here, and underneath this decking, I'm going to add I guess up here it would be a vent there, and there. So that looks good. Now what's happening with these things? It really looks like I've got a couple of these where they don't need to be. It's okay. So let's go back now and double check that in these sort of complex structures on the top, these shade structures, that they're going to be cleaned well and that we're not going to have any pockets of resin up there. You want nothing to be trapped on the inside of these. You want the solvent that you're washing with to make it to every interior surface and every exterior surface. If there's a trapped pocket of resin, that is definitely going to hose you up. And it could be next week if the model gets hot, or it could be next year or 3 years. But you're going to end up with a cracked model, and your customer's going to be very mad at you. I'm going to put a vent there. I'm going to put a vent there. So they're sort of hidden. You'd be hard pressed to see them from the outside of the model, but it allows the solvent to get up in those crevices a little bit better. Let's look up here. So this one's a real mess. So we have connection to the main body at the front of this, but at the back it gets really narrow. And so I'm going to put in a vent right here. Yes. And I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. Right there. Yep. And you don't want those to make it to the outside of your model. So use your X-ray tool on the right here and go through it and make sure that it's not causing too thin of a surface on the outside. That looks fine. You might go and put in, I'm going to go and put in one more just for that little pocket at the tip. Let's see if that'll make it. Yes, yes it does. All right. Well, it's not perfect, but it will be clean enough so as not to fail. And we shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. That's how the saying goes. All right, so we have our drains and we have our vents. Let's move on to supporting. Supporting is going to take about an hour, so buckle up, buckaroo. This is going to be the longest video I've ever done, and I'm not speeding it up or editing it at all. Have fun with that. All right, at the front of these, you always start where it's making first contact, and that white line you see is where the layer is for each layer of the exposure. So that line follows the outside of the mask, and so it's a really helpful tool. On this one, there is such a thing as support mirroring, and it's cool if you have a perfectly symmetrical object, but the icon of the seas, unfortunately, on top of being massive, is not symmetrical. So support mirroring does not work on this. And I really wish that there was some way for Lychee to figure out that there are parts of the model that do match, there are parts of the models that don't match. And it does a little of that, but it's not good enough. So the whole thing just has to be manually supported. And here we go. So I'm going to do view all. It defaults to that. And then we're going to go to manual. For the supports in this, I'm going to be printing it in standard resin. I'm going to go with standard medium supports for the bottom, the keel, and then we'll switch to slightly finer supports for the finer structures up top. And so I placed one. So there's a little bit of a workaround. It doesn't have to be full manual. For this big flat keel surface, you can use projection. And they've moved that into, it was in auto, but see I'm in the manual tab, so that's where they've put supports projection now. And that's, honestly, it's a sort of a manual operation, so that's where it should be. We're going to select the whole bottom. We're going to not ride up on these stabilizer fins because they will absolutely break if you put a support on them. They're very fine. So don't do that. And then come in here and select in here, fill in all this lettering so we're not trying to outline that. It makes for a very difficult removal of the supports at the bottom if you don't go and do this. I think I may have just selected something I didn't want to. Let's see. No, it's okay. It's still going to be confused around these engines. Anytime you have a piece of your model with geometry below where the support paint is, then it's going to end up landing some supports on those objects, and you just have to grin and bear cleaning that up. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So you hit preview supports. I've got 5.7 millimeter interval. I've got it offset from the outside of the support paint line by 0.6 millimeters, which is pretty good. Medium supports, there's a border and the infill supports, and it has 580 of them. So go ahead and add those. It just looks like so many, doesn't it? But then you can go back into, or in manual. Where did they hide parenting? Oh, right. So in version 6.02, parenting has been moved to this new tab called structure. Structure, yes, and you hit support parenting, and it'll about cut those in half. It says, okay, well, a lot of these are overly redundant, and we can parent those. So we've done that, and then we can go in, and they've changed it so that small object bracing. So they have different bracing now. They have small object bracing, tall object bracing, strong bracing, and default bracing. For this one, I'm actually going to use tall object bracing. It gets you sort of the same thickness, it's the medium thickness, but it forms these triangles, these structural triangles that are an absolute beast to remove off of the bottom. But if you have something that's way off the plate like this, like inches, like 10 inches off the plate like this is in places, you're going to want the tall object bracing. I'll click that, and then add update bracing. 0 braces added. Come on, Lychee. Select one of them maybe. Add update bracing. 28 braces. Okay, well, this is different from what it used to be. I guess I have to go and select all of these braces in order to get it to do, or all of these supports at the bottom to get it to do bracing. Why not? Add update bracing. And boy, it's cogitating a long time on this. I'm going to pause the video and come back when it's done. Okay, and we're back, and 14,167 braces added. Holy cow, that is a lot of braces. But it is what it is. Part of doing business. Let's see what we've done. Wow, that is intense. Oh, that's going to use so much resin. Okay, well, I think I'm going to switch to classic supports and maybe just do the tall object supports maybe on the back quarter where the tallest supports live. Wow, that is so dense. It's almost like 15% infill. I mean, it's going to use a lot of resin to run that many um, braces. So let's deselect, or let's do Control Z. Okay, we'll come back in and select the model. Going to select all of the supports and then go to default bracing. Add update bracing. And it's cogitating again. It didn't actually take that long last time. I don't know why I stopped it. But I guess it doesn't have the progress bar that it used to. And it made me think, oh, maybe the thing's going to hose up for a while. Okay, here we go. 10,994. I mean, it's not a lot less, but it's some less. Yeah, this version's interesting. Even the default, what they're calling default, has a lot more cross bracing than it used to, along the lines of like a voxel dance or chichu box. This is a totally different strategy from what they used to do. Completely different. Interesting. I guess enough people complained about it. I didn't really have that much of a problem with it, um, but it arguably wasn't as good from a mechanical perspective to do the bracings the way they had been doing it for, oh, I don't know, 6 years or something. I wonder if there's still mirroring. Manual. So just for kicks, I'm going to turn on mirroring. Uh, you never can tell if it's going to be the X or the Y axis with these Liner's word models. So down here, it looks like it's doing a decent job of detecting that we have a symmetrical hull at this level. So I'm going to go ahead and use some symmetrical supports. And we'll add some there. So now that we're away from the keel and we're starting to work up towards the top, I'm going to lower this to a 0.51 millimeter contact. I can actually go smaller than that. Let's do 45. 47, sure. All right, so we keep going up, and what we're doing here is we're making sure that as it goes at the front here, we're going to have a nice stable base, even though it's not calling for a support there. It's something that I do to make sure that there are supports to keep it stable left to right. And add a couple up the stem. Oops. And that rounds off that direction, so we don't need any more there. We'll come up and do this. This is always fun. Can't tell I'm being facetious, can you? The trick is twofold. You want this on a lesser supported surface. And the problem is that Matt came and made this big ridge right here, which is very scale, but it's also just a absolute pain when you're printing these nose down, which I always do. And I'll show you a trick here in a minute where um, you can just select all of these and make them into minis, and they come off a lot easier and they use less resin. And a mini is really all you need for a small amount of support, like these ridges below the bow windows. Because it's sort of a ledge. In real life, there's like a catwalk here, I think, some netting. You want to do the same thing up at the top. I'm going to back up. Control Z, Control Z. So now I have all of these in the middle. And what I should have done was select those. Maybe I still can't. Try and be sneaky. Sneak in here and select these that aren't going to the ground. So there's going to be a couple that are caught up in it. I'll have to convert back. Oh, come on. Yeah, there we go. And we come in here and we say, make those mini. Mini me. Yes, that looks good. The other neat trick you can do is come and make these off of a single tree. That needs the support. Come on. Come on. And you don't want these landing on a sensitive object like that radar, so come in and make them all come off of, you can put 4, 5, 6 of them coming off of a single tree. Yes, I know you can parent these. No, I'm not going to be doing that. And because you're starting from a tree, these make it up to a decent altitude before they start branching off. Gives them a little bit more chance of actually connecting with what you're trying to support. All I'm doing is clicking and dragging these. I'm not 100% certain that's an option in the vanilla non-paid for free version of Lychee. I suspect that is a pro version. Another notch in the column of you should really give Lychee some money. It's worth giving it to them. It's not expensive, and the features that you get are super handy. All right. We also have these uh, taller supports around the outside, and we will go in and make those braced as well. Do that, you select them. So I might be in trouble here because I've got the mini support selected as well. So let's go into structure, that's where they're hiding it now, and hit default bracing, add update bracing. I wonder if it did something to those mini supports. Let's go look. No, it's recognized that those are mini supports and it has not put bracing on them. But it's missed that one right there for no good reason. So let's try and click on it specifically. Zero bracings added. Why? I have to come and put something right next to it and say, okay, try now. Okay, fine. So that's a little bit of a trick. You got to come in. I did it on this side too. Default bracing, add update bracing. I guess if your support's just a little bit too far away from one of the supports next to it, it's not going to get those braces. And something to be wary of. It's even though it seems like it should be doing this automatically, it needs a little help sometimes. So here we have another big flat surface. I'm going to switch back to manual and go down to projection again. Start supports projection. Do that whole surface. Preview supports. And that's pretty decent. I mean, you can see it's just a couple of places right here where I'm going to go and add additional supporting. So go ahead and add those 38 supports. And those are short enough so that um, I am not going to have any bracing up here. And it'll also make it easier to clean them out when it comes time to do that. These will trim. You can just actually, so this is covered up by the glass dome that's right here, and you're not going to see it at all anyway. Are those even landing somewhere? Something to double check for. Yeah, it looks like it's underneath it, and you really want it to be on it. So that's the problem with it being asymmetric. Lychee says, "Oh, there's structure here within, a certain tolerance. Let's put the support there." But sometimes the support is either not connecting where you think it is, or not connecting to any structure at all. The worst possible case. I'm sorry for the screeching in the background. Trains don't stop for my YouTube sessions. Unfortunately, we're right next to a big switch yard. That's the last of the symmetrical supports I think I can do. So I'll go ahead and shut off mirroring. Come back and work on this front a little bit more. So there's this shade structure that needs a little bit of help. There's a balancing act with these fine structures. You want them to be supported, but if you put too many supports on them, you risk damaging them just by removing the supports. It's a catch-22. There's a balance to be had, and unfortunately a lot of that is just you have to discover it sort of empirically on your own. Okay. Oh, I haven't been recording, have I? No, I am. Good. Okay. Continuing on. So this is what I'm talking about with do I put more supports on it? This is very short. This unsupported section is it's very light. If it had a big dangly object on it or something, I would be worried, but it's not cantilevered that far out, and I'm not going to support any of this. And that's just a decision that you have to come up with, because I could go in and be really finicky and support the whole thing. Trimming it off would probably break it. So, you know, choose the lesser of evils. I choose no support for objects like that. Something to check for is sometimes if there's objects that don't, they look like they should be merged with the part below them. There's occasions where they are not. So I remember in early versions of this, Liner's World had this stack right here. It's like a little baby smokestack, and it is not actually making contact. See? It still isn't. And I actually had the front of this flip up, so you want to come and make supports at the front. And that's something I actually need to email the designer. He's very good about fixing that sort of thing. But yeah, it's something to watch for. And you can actually come around the back side of it and put supports underneath it. Another workaround is to take a primitive object like a cube and merge it in right there, which would save a little bit of time. I'll just go ahead and manually come in here and support all this. Come on, come on. Here you go. And it's really finicky because with a tolerance this small, with a smaller ship like this, it's so close that the machine ends up usually gluing. Like, this is a very shallow space. It's probably, 5 microns or something. So with a smaller model, this isn't going to usually give you trouble. But it might. It might. It just depends on, the temperature of the resin and your individual machine settings, what the machine's actually capable of. So best not to take chances if you see something like this. And that's a real gotcha. Like if you don't know your model and your modeler very well, something like that will trip you up. And it's not going to be a catastrophic failure, but it's going to be something that you have to take time after you've printed this to repair it or, huck it and print another one, worst case. But yeah, I also repaired like five of these before I realized what was going on there. So yeah, School of Hard Knocks for me. All right, so that smokestack is now glued on there with little mini supports, and it will form properly at the front. And joy of joys, the designer has put in very realistic these like awnings and little shade structures everywhere, and every single one of them is going to need a support at the leading edge because they're all islands at the top. Yay! So many supports. This is what I was saying. That's why I had to charge so much for the darn thing on my website, is because it's literally like an hour and a half. Like even if I'm not talking to you, like with this verbal diary I have going, it still is taking an inordinate amount of time to support and then to trim the supports when the darn thing comes out of the wash. It's just it's just a lot. When people look at the prices of my resin models and they're gobsmacked that it would cost more than an injection molding, here's why. Because I'm investing hours of my engineering time going in and putting these supports in manually because this is asymmetric. Wah, 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 I know. You get to play for toys with a living Eric for a living, Eric. Just keep telling yourself that. There's a lip from these shade structures that is so hard to support because there's competing structures or interfering structures in the way. But you got to do it because it'll crumple up and look like crap, and then you throw your model in trash and start over anyway. Just one. It's the cover. Islands, islands everywhere. So the other fun thing about this ship is it has not one, but two, actually maybe even three water park areas with lots of water slides, which are a support hazard in and of themselves. There's one. It's just a game of whack-a-mole with this thing, and I'm gonna have to go over it again when I think I'm done, because I guarantee you I'll find five or six more islands that I need to support. Each of these darn flower things. What a pain. The heck did you do there, Lychee? Control Z. Um, there we go. Another sauna. How many saunas do we need, Royal Caribbean? I guess there are like 10,000 people aboard this ship. Boggles the mind. The first cruise I took was the Holland America Westerdam. It was the Home Lines not Europa. I can't remember, but it was a ship that was built in '87, lengthened by the time Holland America got a hold of it. Maybe they did it themselves, and it became the Westerdam. A beautiful ship. I thought it was massive, and it was massive for its for its day. But yeah, it only held like 2,000 people, 2,500 people, and 500 crew. And now we have ships that are like 8 times that much. It's absolutely bonkers. Not 8 times, 5 times. I can do calculus, but not arithmetic. It's a problem. Same thing here. You're going to want to move these to a tree, and it's going to want to attach to a fragile object because it's going, hey, where's the nearest object I can attach to? Why not this railing? And so you don't want it to do that. Just make a nice tree right here, and it'll be good. Same thing over here, leading edge. You got that big lip, and it needs to be supported because it's an island. You can see that white circle right there. On the railing again. Thank you, Lychee. I'm picking on Lychee, but they're doing. I mean, I was a software developer, but I did like conveyor belts and very, very basic visualization. I can't imagine the computation that goes into taking, even just for these supports, the computational energy that it takes to make that happen in almost real time and insert it as a printable mesh. Yeah, it would be difficult. My hat's off to them. All right. So the other thing is these are big, long overhangs, and you're going to want to get up underneath there and add a couple in the interim because that way it's not just um, going off of the little fingers at the very tip. Yeah. So if you don't do this, you'll end up with a little crinkling. It won't look just perfect. So definitely go in and do that. Again, learned the hard way. There are a bunch of structures on this that I've never seen on a ship before, and you just can't plan for it until it fails, and you have to figure out why. All right, that's looking pretty good. Um, Now we get to the more water park. First we had the kiddie water park, and now we get to the adulty water park. As much as possible, I try and get my support so that they're going to be not connecting from fragile parts at the plate to the fragile parts at the top of the ship. I want it to go from the fragile part at the top of the ship to the nearest possible point on the ship itself. Saves resin. It's more likely to succeed when you're printing. And uh, yeah, it's just like if you're trying to scrape off something with this enormous lever arm going from the plate up to a fine object, guess what it's going to break off? The weakest part. And it's just, hello train, yes, welcome. Very busy afternoon in the Roseville Switchyard. Like a particularly irritating horn sound too. Like some of them are sonorous and tuned, and some of them are just like intentionally annoying, I think, based on what vintage they are, I'm sure. Somebody who's watching this channel, the one or two guys that are serious train guys, need to chime in and tell me what I'm hearing, because, like, Big Boy came through the other day, and it just was this melodious, train whistle. It was beautiful. And then, okay, I like an occasional tritone. It's meant to be annoying, but it's not like really bad. And there are ones like this one that just are out of tune and intentionally bad. Is it intentional? I'm asking. I'm only asking questions. It annoys me going around in the world and finding things that just have zero thought given to the noise pollution that they create. I mean, it's bad enough that there are Harleys that are intentionally terrible. Like, with like $5 additional invested in each vacuum cleaner, you could have something that didn't sound like it was gonna turn into a fragmentation grenade. I guess I should probably talk about what I'm supporting. So all I'm doing is looking for where there are leading edges of these pipes, these uh, these water slides, and if you don't support them, they turn into these weird flappy two-dimensional things. You have to trim them out and reprint the water slide and glue them into position. And ask me how I know. What's that? Oh, okay, that's merged. All right, well, these Royal Caribbean symbols, they're tricky. They want to fail here. They want to fail here. Come on. There you go. And they want to fail here. Come on. Give me my mini support. Give it to me. Okay. What's that looking like? Oop, that's smack on it. So go ahead and put one in the middle there. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. We'll do here. And here. Come on. No. We spent all this time talking about not letting things go down to the bottom, but here we are. It's going down to the bottom. Would you please give me a mini support? Please? Lychee, you're killing me. Okay. And then a mini support here. Mini support, Lychee. Mini. Fine. I'll do it myself. And then one here. And here. And I should do that on the other side too. Come on. There. Okay. So we're almost, I'd give us like, we're more than halfway done with the supports. I'm kind of moved further back on the adult section of the water slides. an enormous support hazard. It really is a pain. Yeah, you see the island right there. Right there. And these mini supports are actually gonna be like really simple. I wish that I could come on. Come on. Alright, so here's another trick. Do a mini support, then move it. And then put in another mini support. Haha, fooled you. Are there any more loop-the-loops that I've missed? Probably. But I'll do the entire thing as a once over. Alright, here are incredibly fine structures. And last time I thought I was being really clever by supporting these. I'm going to support them, but I'm going to manually go in and make them all mini supports. Mini supports. Excuse me, mini. Thank you. And then I'm going to make them into trees. And then I am not going to mess with them. God dang it. Why didn't you go where the other one went? Go where the other one went. Where the other one went. Ah, move. You there. And you there. And there. And there. And there. There's some islanding. Alright, here's this weird clubhouse thing at the top of the two big support beams with a water slide. 10 points to Gryffindor if you get that reference. That is a 1980s reference, because I am old. Alright, so sometimes, in order to support something, you need to turn off the visibility and just get into wireframe mode for the supports. And it allows you to sneak in here and go, oh, I can see behind these supports now. Let's get some supports on this island. Supports on this island. Supports on this crossbeam. Supports, 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 supports. Put a couple down here just because it's a long run. I'm kind of cruising around in the middle of the model just by zooming out. Yes. So tricky, 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 tricky. And if you don't come in and support an internal thing like this, it's still going to form. It's just going to be a little mushy. And I like to avoid mushiness. And this thing's sneaking out down here. Look at that. That's just a big mess waiting to happen if you don't put supports. Alright, let's get further towards the back. There is, oh my, look at that. So here's where Lychee said, hey, this is the most convenient object to put the support bases on. You really want to make that into a tree. And actually, let me think about that. The top middle of this is not the worst place for a tree to sprout, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move all these, if it'll let me. I'm going to move all these into this center of this to make a tree. And maybe I'll come back and do parenting. I'm not liking how that's looking. Still a little bit wonky. Why are you doing that? Let's make 2 trees. Uh, oh, I'm liking that. That's looking good. And then, what are you doing? Oh, okay. These ones that ended up at the front tip, I'm going to move up to another smaller tree right here. You can trim the bottom of those with one snip, and it doesn't take a lot of post-processing to fix them up. So here's where Lychee said, this is a very convenient fine object for me to land on. Yeah, don't do that. Move them all away from the fine objects onto a big flat surface or onto the top of a more robust object. So that way it's easier to trim them and you're not going to break your railing or your bulwark or whatever other thing it wants to attach to that's difficult. Oh, what are you doing? Okay. No? Okay, do that. Alright, 2 trees there. So that's pretty close to all the top. Let's double check. I'm sure I've missed something. Or several somethings. Like that one right there. I've missed that entirely. I'm sure I've missed more than one. The other thing that I have for this file is a spare part sprue. So if you come and do something like this, that needs to be a mini. If you come in and miss one of these and it gets misprinted, you can just trim it and glue another one in its place. But that's part of why I got into this, is so I don't have to come in and glue fiddly bits together. I hate that. I never really enjoyed traditional kits. Like, it's okay to build one once in a while, but producing these in mass, I don't want to be spending my precious time gluing little bits back together. I want it to be ready to roll right out of the vat. Oh, I like that mini. Where'd it go? There it is. Yay, mini! Oh, it landed somewhere goofy. Mini. And mini. Mini. Can you say hand me? I'm getting punchy. It's like 7:30 here. Wow, it got late. How the time flies. Turns out it flies whether you're having fun or not. Sorry, kids. Maybe I am having fun. Maybe I can convince myself of that. It's fun-ish. I mean, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. But the moles are harder to see. They aren't moving very fast, though. Like, you control the rate of movement. I don't know. Bad analogy. Move on. I'm not going to workshop that analogy anymore. All right, we have our forest of shade structures supported back here. That red means that it's crossing over geometry and it's going to intersect with it. And for that, it's small and I don't care. We have our trees, we have our water park supported. Did I get the front of that one? No, I did not. And that's going to turn into a mess. Well, maybe it's connected at the bottom. Let's see. It is connected at the bottom. So I lucked into that one. But if I'd missed that and it wasn't going through this glass fence, then yeah, I'd have been in trouble. But it is. So we're all good. That is most of the top side. I'll probably do one more review of the top side before I call it. All right, now comes the ever entertaining lifeboats. Lifeboats are difficult for a couple reasons. These davits have an island here at the front. Every single one of those has to get a mini support. And then on the bottom of these, I do a couple of supports right at the leading edge of the keel. Um, and this one, they're so big, I do two. So there's this one, and this one, and then I do, it's a monohull. I think it's a monohull. Is it a monohull? It is a monohull. So I'm just going to come down the middle and put 5 or 6 supports. These lifeboats are so huge. They're bigger than some of my tugboats that I sell, just in and of themselves. And there's like 20 of them on here, or 25, 6. It's an even number. And so you have to do this on both sides, right here, right here. And if you don't do this, well, guess what, friends? You've got a melty front of your lifeboat, and you have to break it out and print a replacement lifeboat and glue it in. That is at least a 10-minute operation, depending on how you value your time. If you've messed up a bunch of them, you're looking at throwing the entire model in the garbage. So don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. So I just had a thought, and I'm going to take a break from doing lifeboats and come back to them. That I want to show you guys that I skipped. Oh, those are a lot of supports that don't have any bracing. There's just so many things. Add, update bracing. So many things to potentially go wrong here. Add, update bracing. I didn't even make it all the way to the back. Thankfully, unlike the other one with the big water theater thing, this one is a bit simpler. It's just a little tiny water park. It's mainly supported in and of itself. I can't get there from here. What I really wanted to work on was the propellers. So this is a full hull model. It has azipods. I'm going to delete these little back bits here. Delete. I may have taken too much. Control Z. So I'm going to just go to where those are. And I can't really see them through the forest of these supports. Let's see if I can do better though. I can clean the rest of this up by hand. So I don't want supports anywhere near these propellers on these azipods because, as aforementioned, they are very fine structures. Very fine structures. And I typically don't individually snip off these bottom supports. They're fine enough. If I get them warm, they tear loose. They don't leave a lot of a divot. And my clients will go in and do a little bit of sanding, or they'll use a filling primer so that the divots fill in and it looks fine. I'm going to manually support these. There are actually 5 points that need supporting. So these 4 individual blades that have elements that are islands, and then the center hub. 1, 2, 3, 4, It's almost a fool's errand. I mean, you have to support them because you want the nacelles to form properly, but they almost always break. I did do a trick where I was putting a plate right next to them and uh, and running mini supports from the plate up to the azipods and the blades, and that works. But it's a lot of additional resin. It's a lot of extra work. It's basically, in terms of work, six of one, half dozen of the other. Taking a chance on doing this and then just replacing them when it fails because they're thin enough that it's probably going to fail anyway. Even when I had the plate, they would fail in the wash. So it's pretty frustrating. I need to talk to Liner's World about it. But I've been meaning to talk to Liner's World about it for 3 years. No, that's stupid. Don't do that, Eric. Control Z. Okay, so we have our azipod supported. No, we need a couple of them on here so the azipods will form properly. And we can come in and select all of these supports back here and say, give me tall support mode. And it will go, yes, let's give you some insane tall support structure. Woof. Yeah, I've done models where the entirety of the model used 1700 braces, and now it's just the azipods. Insanity. But hopefully it'll form better? Question mark. We'll see. I bet it will. Sneak in here. Maybe it'll let me put a little support. It really doesn't need it on the arch. It just needs it on the point of the Royal Caribbean symbol. And it needs it on this tree. Please? Yay! Nope. I want that to be a mini. And I want another one right there. Please. No. No. Mini. Yes. Yes. Oh, last one. There. And these are just such fine trees, and they're all over this darn thing. But if you don't put supports on them, they get furbly looking, and you don't want to give that to your client. No, it landed on that leaf, because of course it did. Okay, coming in at this at the wrong angle. So what have I missed? What have I missed? We're coming to the end of this. Thank God. Oh, that needs to be a mini. It needs to not be on that water slide. Why you do this, Lychee? No, no, no bad mouthing, Lychee. Oh, I'm losing it. Maybe I never had it. It's support jobs like these that it really had me second guessing doing this. Had me second guessing doing this model at a minimum. Like there was just no amount of money that I could charge that would justify doing the support job. But I've done it 5 times now, so I must be a glutton for punishment, or maybe it's making me enough money. It's definitely not. But anyway, okay. Back to supporting lifeboats. We'll support the lifeboats on both sides, and then I will start slicing, and this video will be over, thankfully. Come on, let me zoom in just a little bit more, Lychee, please. It's that problem with, it not letting you zoom in more than a certain amount on one side of the model. Yeah, I'm hung. It won't go in anymore. So I have to squint at the screen and see if I'm actually hitting the surface. Frustrating. And as aforementioned, this is not a symmetrical model. At um, the lifeboat deck, it's not symmetrical, and that throws off the calculation for support mirroring. So you cannot come in and drop in automatic supports with mirrors. I've tried and failed. Come on! It's because I'm zoomed in so much. Using that third mouse button. There we go. Zoom out just a little bit. And you can actually move on. Let's go on the front. Why do that to me? Just do that. Yes. Okay. Almost done with one side. Yay. Come on. Come on. I'm going to be working on this into my retirement. Who am I kidding? I'm never retiring. Oh, my lord. That's not all of them. There's another bank back here. And there's a little zodiac. You need to make sure you support the nose of that, because that is an island. Boop. Okay. Zoom back in, scroll up a little ways. Or just, there we go. Isa. Come on. Scheisenkopf. Sorry, German speakers. I'll do better. Sensitive. Why you gotta be so sensitive, Lychee? So sensitive. Last one for the starboard side. Nope. Control Z. Using Control Z a lot. Alright, I'll switch over to the other side. You can see how much effort this is taking? Yeah, I don't know. I'm already, how far into this am I? An hour and 20 minutes. This is like a full-length feature movie. Alright, so that Zodiac is supported at the front because it's merged with the other mesh. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll go in and do all the davits first, and then I'll come back and do the keels of each of these. Why you gotta move so fast? So I have a feeling that this one's gonna go faster. This side is gonna go faster because this is the side that lets you zoom in on more. Again, if Lychee's watching, that is quite the annoying bug, and it's been there since version 4, I think. Like that's been there for 3.5 years. Okay, now I'm going to come and do all of the keel supports. Oh, we have another train, surprising no one. Ah, they're putting away the trains that are under repair for the night into the maintenance shed with them. How much faster this goes when you don't have to spend half an hour zooming in and out. Really is an irksome bug. Lychee's over in France. Uh, I suspect that they have some good English speakers, but I highly, highly doubt that they ever watch my videos. For one, I only have 300 followers, and for two, they're very long. I'm not going out of my way to be entertaining, or at least, hopefully, I'm mildly entertaining. But mainly, I'm just doing that to keep myself from going nuts. Another Zodiac. Very close to being done. So close, I can taste it. Oh, Control Z. Is this it? Is this the last one? And this distinct sensation. This may be the last one. Be calm, Eric. Be calm. Oh, that's the last one. Okay. Very exciting. Very exciting. I've gone this whole way, and I don't think I've saved. But Lychee does a light save for you, but you should definitely be saving once in a while in case some operation freezes your computer and your host. So it's saved. Um, one final review of the top side to make sure that I haven't missed something important. I don't think I have. I think I was pretty diligent. There's some stuff down in there I missed. Come on. Come on. It's mini. It's like a mini mall. Montgomery Flea Market. There's an old reference. There's memes from like, oh, this is like videos before there was YouTube. The Montgomery Flea Market. Look that stuff up. That's the stuff your elder millennial was watching back in 2003 and 4. Grandpappy millennials. Mini, mini, mini. Okay. Any other shade structures that I missed? Probably. I certainly want to make that into a tree. What the heck did I do there? It's not landing where I went for it to land. That can also be a tree. Treeify things. You'll thank me later. And as previously mentioned, I've probably missed something. Undoubtedly, I've missed something, and then I will have to make the decision to go and resupport and try again, or try and remediate it as is. I don't do a lot of these 1/1000 scale. They tend to be for real 3D printing enthusiasts because that's the default size it comes from Liner's World. So I do a few, but most of what I do in these are 1/1250th scale and like 1/600th, 1/700th scale. Haven't done a 1/350th yet, but I want to. Someone with thousands of dollars, hit me up on my website. I will print you a 1/350th scale icon of the seas. Alright, that's it for this video. I'm going to Control S and go to export. And I thank you all for sticking with me. It's been a long, hard slog. If you see this or something else on my channel that you want to buy, go to yesyourtoys.com and use the code SHIPSFREE4ME at checkout for free shipping. That's SHIPSFREE4ME, and we're going to export slices to file. Save that, and away we go.